I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and it's time to kick off part 2 of the Samsung ATIV Odyssey full video review. But first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this, and the One X Plus, and the Galaxy S3, and the Droid DNA, and more for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which is our giveaway game that we give you devices for free at on PhoneDog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. Whether you get the ATIV Odyssey or another Windows phone or an Android device, they'll make sure you're good to go. So when you walk out the door, you're set up. You don't have to waste your time or waste your weekends or your evenings setting stuff up. They'll make sure you walk out working, so you know what? Grandma won't call you for all those settings issues. She'll have it fixed thanks to Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. It's part 2. Is the ATIV Odyssey the best Windows Phone device you can get on Verizon? Or should you go with the Lumia 822 or the HTC Windows Phone 8X? It's part 2 of a full video review, and it starts right now. So to kick off part 2, let's continue to talk about personalization, because there are some changes from Windows Phone 7 to Windows Phone 8. In particular, if you're coming from iOS or Android, these are all things you should know. First of all, customizations on a scale of 1 to 10. It's not the most customizable OS. They've made significant strides since the Windows Phone 7 and 7.5 days. And you can change some unique things like themes. I can change the background from dark to light, for example. I can change the accent color around it. What's really nice about this, as opposed to Windows Phone 7 and 7.5, you got a bunch of different accents to choose from. So I can choose orange, I can choose cobalt, a lot of different options here where it's no longer just blue or green or red. You got a bunch of different themes and a bunch of different shades of color that you can choose from. So again, back to that customizable theme. You can really make this device your own and move the live tiles around as you see fit. And then I really enjoy the ability here. For example, I've taken a couple of photos and you're going to see those photos change out. So the live tiles are very useful, but I find that overall, throughout the day, it's kind of hard to control what those tiles do. So for example, if I have Weather Channel downloaded, it can show me the weather. I can see the 3-day forecast depending on how big the live tile is. But it doesn't really give me the ability to customize that tile. I like the ability to do some more customization with it, as opposed to, for example, photos. It's just showing me random photos from the gallery. I'd love to be able to come in and say, okay, show me photos specifically from this gallery, or show me photos, that were taken between this date and that date. I know that's a lot of customization to ask for, but I think that's something that in 2013 would really distinguish it apart. It's one of those things, the live tiles are super cool, but they're kind of out of control, if you will, and that's something to keep in mind if you're looking at Windows Phone 8. Not that that's a bad thing by any means, but it's something to consider if you're into customization and you're coming from Android, where literally you can customize almost everything. That could be an issue for you moving over to the Windows Phone 8 platform. That said, let's take a look at some of these customizations. The lock screen I find particularly useful. I've got a couple of different options on the ATIV Odyssey. You've got Photo, Bing, Live Wallpaper, and Photo Editors. Like I said in part 1, Live Wallpaper is a really useful application where I can come in here and I can do a bunch of pictures. So you know what? Save pictures. I'm going to add that one. I'm going to go in here to do some more. I'm going to add, a bunch of these. We'll do maybe those. So I've got 10 different pictures here now in my sample live wallpaper, and I can remove them as I see fit. So when I turn this phone off and back on, it will display one of these pictures and will rotate through. So if you remember, in part 1 it showed my telephone, in part 2 it's showing the pavement with the 5. So it changes around depending on the time and depending on how many pictures you have in your live wallpaper gallery. So that's particularly useful. Another thing I like about lock screen though is this choose an app to show detailed status. So I'm going to change this over briefly to messaging, for example. And then I've got my quick statuses here below so I can see calls, and obviously when you turn it off and back on, that's all showing down here in the bottom. But what it's talking about when it says preview, you got a little space here for a preview. And you know what, with Windows Phone, you don't have the space for everything, but it lets you choose the application that's most important. So I chose messaging, for example. So I can come down here and assign, let's say, games to that one. I can assign Outlook to this one. I can assign voicemail to that one. Kind of move them around as I see fit. But then when I get a text message, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in a demo phone here so you can see what a text message looks like. I'll say hello, or I'll just say hi again. That works. So it's going to pop up with my demo phone number here. And it's going to show up because I selected that as the one that receives the preview. It's going to show that in just a second, or should show it. Actually, I believe I texted the wrong number. Did I? No, I guess I didn't. Hopefully not. Let's see. No, I didn't send. Let's try that one more time. Hi. Let's see if we can get it through here. The joys of demos and doing stuff live on camera. So you can see hi pops up, but you see my preview right there pops up as well. So it's taking advantage of that extra screen real estate. I can swipe away to remove that. Taking advantage of that extra screen real estate as you see fit. So if you want that to be calendars or missed calls, you've got the option to do that as well through that custom setting. Let's take a look at speed test here and see what Verizon's 4G LTE network looks like in the North Dallas area. We'll go ahead and load up speed test. This is actually the Ookla version. So I'll go through here and we'll do a speed test right about now. Let's take a look at settings. Let's say megabits per second. Yep, we'll do Dallas, Texas. and we'll see how well this performs. Verizon promises a download speed between 5 and 12 megabits per second, an upload speed of 2 to 5 megabits per second, and it's looking a little slow right now. We're not really in rush hour. It's 3:05 Central Time right now. So about 5, so barely just met the threshold at the very end. 5 megabits per second on the download. Upload, we're looking about a little bit faster, 3.5 megabits per second. Obviously take individual tests with a grain of salt. The network could be overloaded. This particular cell site it's coming off of could be having an issue or being overloaded. Keep that in mind though. Still, a little bit slow for 4G LTE in comparison to something like AT&T, and granted Dallas is their home market or one of their home markets, but still I see between 25 and 35 megabits per second on a regular basis, and even Sprint's LTE in this area I see between 12 and 15 megabits per second. So a little bit watered down. That said, you have the greatest chance of finding an LTE market with Verizon. Their rollout is by far the fastest and by far covered the most ground. So if you come to a city, you go to a city that has 12,000 people, Verizon's going to be the most likely 4G LTE network in the city if they even have one. So keep that in mind. A little bit slower, a little bit more saturated, but still 4G LTE all around. So it's kind of a trade-off as opposed to perhaps AT&T, who's still rolling out, and Sprint, who's a little bit behind in the game and is slowly rolling out as well. A lot of integration here with Outlook. One of my favorite things, I want to talk about this briefly, is this Me column, where you can see for whatever reason it's not updating my picture, but I can post an update on Twitter, hello, and I can hit send. And it brings up, and actually may not let me post the update because my password needs to be changed. But we'll go ahead and cancel out of that. But you can see here, post an update, check in. I can set my chat status. It shows me my notifications when it works of all the people that have either responded to me, mentioned me, direct messaged me, those kind of things. And then share is particularly useful because I can see my latest tweet right here. I can check in through a couple different places. And I have Facebook integration here if I want it. Go ahead and allow that. And you can see it allows you to pick a place, which I'm not going to go into that because then it'll show where my office is and everybody want to come hang out. Local Scout's also particularly useful. This is an application I use on a pretty regular basis when I'm traveling. Land in San Francisco, for example, I'm looking for a great place to eat or drink. I'll load it up and it'll say, you know what, you're in San Francisco, you're right here in the Mission District, here's where you can eat and drink. And then of course places where you can stay, hotels, entertainment, things like that. And that's a particularly useful. Not quite sure why it's taking so long to load up. Let's see. Make sure our location-based services are turned on. Let's go down here to location, turned on. Let's just make sure. So it's loading up. Yeah, location services turned on. Not sure why it's doing that. Another particularly useful feature that I find pretty cool here is the Kids Corner. We're going to turn this on so you can see what it looks like. We're going to add some applications. So let's say you got a son or a daughter, they play around with your phone. You want to give them access to a couple things, but you want to make sure they don't call your boss on a regular basis. You just give them access to a couple of applications. Go to next. I'm going to set a password here, and we'll just make it 1, 2, 3, 4, make it super easy. Or do I set all my passwords to 1, 2, 3, 4? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I can't tell you. But you can see here, so I'll turn it off and back on. And like I said, my live wallpaper is still rotating through there. Still got my text messages, you can see. All I have to do is swipe to the left to access Kids Corner. Now when I swipe up here, it's supposed to ask me for a password. I'm not sure why it's not asking me for a password. Then when I swipe over, Kids Corner, I swipe up. And here's Kids Corner. So little Timmy, my son Timmy, let's say, customize. We're going to call him little Timmy. Timmy? And we'll choose dark accents and we'll change the accent color. We're going to give Timmy Verizon Red because Timmy's a firecracker. So we can make these smaller, larger as we see fit. So Timmy's got the ability to customize his own Kids Corner, which is really, really a cool thing. So he can make it his own, and all you have to do is turn the phone off and back on, and then there's the passwords. I can either go into my area or I can get rid of that and go back into Kids Corner as I see fit, and there's Timmy's Corner right there. So easy to use, nice for that ability where you got your kid, they want to play with your phone, and then they give you your phone back and everything's destroyed. Not the case with Kids Corner, which is very nice. Last but not least, I want to talk about the Microsoft Store because it has undergone some significant changes in a lot of ways. First of all, you always get an OEM-centric store here, so either a carrier store or an OEM store. In this case, Samsung Zone is what we see. So we can load up some Samsung applications here, see what comes out of the box, and let it load on Verizon's 4G LTE network. As you can see, Music Hub, Photo Editor, Live Wallpaper, a lot of different options here. Music Hub is here, Beauty. Let's see what Beauty is. I actually don't know what the Beauty Lens, all the imperfections on your subject's face. You know what, we can download that as a camera add-on. Beauty, I like that. So once we add that on, take a look at the camera while it's downloading. And we'll take a look here, and it should be a lens. I imagine it'll download it as a lens. But here's the camera, 5 megapixel camera, nothing to write home about by any means, 720p HD recording. What I do like though is the physical camera button and the ability to easily swipe between gallery and my live camera itself. So now, go to my lenses, you'll see beauties in there, and I find this to be a particularly useful Windows Phone 8 or particularly interesting Windows Phone 8 thing. They don't actually integrate these in from the box, so you have to physically download beauty. It's not like it comes as a pre-installed software benefit of this device. Interesting Windows Phone 8 thing. Don't really have an answer for you as to why that happens the way that it does, but I can throw on the beauty lens and take a picture and get rid of those cosmetic imperfections. And then when I'm done, I can go right back and select either the Bing Vision lens, a beauty lens, or I can download additional lenses from the Samsung Zone. Now this is something that's across Windows Phone 8. This is not a Samsung specific thing. I've seen it on Nokia devices and on HTC devices. So particularly interesting camera thing. All in all, camera's gonna be decent. Nothing to write home about. 720p HD video recording, definitely been trumped by 1080p. That said, if you're buying this device, you're probably buying it because you want a nice smartphone at a reasonable price. I think the camera's gonna be more than fine for day-to-day use. Another thing I'll tell you, 2,100 milliamp hour battery performs pretty admirably throughout the day. With the small screen, with the fact that it's a dual-core processor and not a quad-core processor, I'm getting pretty moderate use cases out of this device. I'm getting about 15 hours with moderate use. That's texting, emailing, browsing the web, just playing around with the device, downloading some applications. I'm sure heavy use will take its toll, but fortunately the battery is removable and it's 2,100 milliamp hours. So even though it's 4G LTE, I find that I'm able to make it about 14 to 15 hours through the day, which makes this a pretty decent device. Consider the fact that the Galaxy S3 has the exact same size battery and it has a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED HD display. So keep that in mind. It's HD, it's a bigger display, and all in all, it's powering a little bit more. So keep that in mind. All in all though, 49 bucks, a great device. Now, is this on par with the Lumia 822, the 8X? It depends on what you want. If you want a high-end device, you want something that's thin and light, the 8X is gonna be your device. If you're a Nokia person, I think when you get into the Nokia and Samsung battle here, because they're so similar, I think you've really gotta look at the applications that come pre-installed. If you like Nokia's software that they include, take a look at the Lumia 822. If you're a fan of some of the cool applications on here, live wallpaper, mini diary, NFL Mobile, any of the Verizon stuff, mini diary, photo editor, any of the Samsung installed applications, take a look at the ATIV Odyssey. All in all, very reasonable smartphone for the price. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage. Hit me up on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and let me know what you think of this device. And then be sure to tell us on Facebook as well, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. Stay tuned for dogfights between this, the Lumia 822, and a bunch of other Windows phones and Android phones too, like the Discover by Pantech. You're going to want to stay tuned because it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks on PhoneDog.com. We'll see you next time.